And new changes could soon be coming to the Pentagon's worldwide school system after years of concerns about transparency, parental involvement, and the growing role of DEI in the classroom. The proposed reforms would shift the focus back to academics, strengthen parental input, and expand educational choices for military families. And joining us to discuss is a Deputy Public Policy Editor for Open the Books. That is Rachel O'Brien. Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel.
Thanks for having me, Angela.
Now, Open the Books has been investigating the Pentagon school system for months now. For people who may not know exactly what this is, what is the Department of War's education activity, and where were, the biggest problems that you actually uncovered?
Yeah, so the Department of War education activity, what we call DOWEA, used to be DODEA or DOWEA. They educate the children of military service members around the world. So there are 161 of these schools globally, and they cost $2.5 billion a year at least. And so they've decided to start making some changes. This is good news for service members this 4th of July. As you mentioned, there had been some problems there. There had been an over-reliance on long-term substitute teachers, teachers that frequently move in and out of schools. The school system, as you said, they had been ideologically charged classroom practices like DEI. And bureaucrats had worked to exclude parents, lacking not only communication, but excluding them from any sort of school governance, and expanding the influence of the administrators themselves. So there's going to be some changes we're going to see here in that agency.
Yeah, what are those changes? And do you think those changes are going to address whatever those parents were concerned about?
Yeah, so there's new leadership there. So the director who was there in 2023 had told Congress he would dismantle the DEI department. And then at the same time, he went back and he told his staff that DEI would just be embedded more deeply into the departments. So, they're no longer going to have this focus on DEI or ideological teaching. They're going to implement a focus on academic rigor and life skills. They're going to have permanent prepared teachers in classrooms. They're not going to rely on these temporary teachers. They're going to improve the transparency of the advisory committees and have better communication between parents. And then a real big one is they're proposing a school choice pilot. And so they'll provide financial assistance to those service members so they can have educational choice. They can decide whether to send their kids to private or faith-based schools or public charter schools or homeschool them.
Well, let's talk about the surprising findings involving student performance. The school system has pointed to strong national test scores, but your report says other assessments paint a very different picture. What did you find?
Yeah, the NAEP, this is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It doesn't measure individual student scores. It doesn't provide scores for individual students or really schools. So it's not the best way to measure a student's success. So the DODEA leadership, they have bragged about their higher than average NAEP scores, but they've ignored their own assessments for the college and career readiness standards. Those are a truer picture of how well students are learning materials. And so they give very little results for those tests. For the 2023 and 2024 school year, we can see really varying results for their 161 schools. Some schools show 0% of students exceeding or meeting expectations. Others have higher percentages. So, the chief academic officer at these schools have said they're going to have data-informed decision-making. They're not going to use one assessment alone. It's not going to show them what they need to know. And then they're going to get back to emphasizing literacy as a foundational issue, how groundbreaking. He said they're going to go back to books in the hands of kids and reducing excessive screen dependency. So it sounds like all pretty decent and common sense changes they're going to be making.
0%, that's something. Thank you so much. Deputy Public Policy Editor for Open the Books, Rachel O'Brien, thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you, Angela. Happy 4th.
Happy 4th.
We're following